Welcome back to the Sustainably Tidy podcast, where I help you get organized in a way that is sustainable for both you and the planet. On this episode, we're going to kick off with something a little different and new, but something I want to do on each episode, which is a sustainable swap. For a lot of us, I know for me, sustainability felt like a mountain to climb that seemed like Mount Everest. And it was like, why do I even start when it feels like I'm one person? I'm not going to make that big of a difference. And sometimes it felt like the different recommendations for sustainability were out of reach or super, super expensive. And so I hope to do with these sustainable swaps is help you to think about different ways you can simply incorporate more sustainability into your life as you run out of different items. That's been one of the best ways for me to incorporate sustainability into my life is not to do a complete overhaul of every single item in my apartment at one given time, but as I run out of items, replacing them with more sustainable alternatives. So for example, as you run out of laundry detergent or toothpaste or soap or dish detergent, just instead of purchasing what you usually purchase, look into purchasing a more sustainable alternative. And that sustainable alternative could be an alternative that has more sustainable packaging or no packaging. It could be an item that is made from sustainable materials. It could be an item that you repurpose instead of going out and purchasing a new one. There's different ways to replace items as you run out of them, but to simply pause and ask the question of how could I purchase something new or repurpose something I already have to refill this item I just ran out of can really go a long way. And so the first sustainable swap we will get into today is the Quip, Q-U-I-P, reusable floss pick. Now there are plenty of reusable floss picks out there, but I happen to use Quip. I bought it a few years ago. If you're watching on YouTube, this is what it looks like. I have the black one. And like I said, you could purchase a lot of different floss picks that are reusable from different places, but I have the Quip one. And the reason I like this is because I care a lot about dental hygiene, as I'm sure many of you do. I had braces for probably 5 or 6 years growing up, and so I do not want my smile to get messed up. I don't want a bunch of cavities. I do not want to have painful dentist visits. And so, as you probably know and have heard from your dentist, flossing is the key to all of that success. And so I also knew that I would not floss with just the regular floss. I know myself. I just don't keep up with it. And so I was purchasing floss picks that were plastic and you use them once and then you throw them away. And that was a source of a lot of plastic consumption for me. And so I ran out of my last plastic floss pick probably in 2020 or 2021. And I decided to swap it in with a reusable floss pick. And I found Quip and I've been using it ever since. And it's worked great. You just wash it and you can keep using it. So that's the first sustainable swap. Give it a thought, give it a try. Let me know what you think. And let me know if you are struggling with or trying to think about how to swap a product into your apartment, your home, and looking for a sustainable alternative. I actually really enjoy looking for sustainable alternatives for items. And so if you drop one in the comments or DM me something you're trying to find a sustainable alternative for, I can definitely let you know if I've found something that works. So that's our first sustainable swap, and stay tuned for more of those. And now for today's episode, we are going to talk about the process of getting organized. Anytime I work with clients, I outline my 4-step process for helping them get organized. For me, having some sort of plan or process, because I am a planner, always is important. So today we are going to talk about the process of getting organized, because as many of you probably know, it doesn't just happen overnight and it doesn't always happen at the snap of your fingers. There is a process, and different home organizers have different ways that they work with clients to help them get organized. So let's get into it. The first step is setting goals. This is important because for me as a home organizer, I've got to understand what's driving you so that as I'm working with you, I can help you work toward whatever that driving underlying factor is. So whether that's wanting to get organized so that you can use more of the space in your home, maybe you have had challenges in your family, in your marriage, because the space is chaotic and you're unable to function in it. And a lot of familial issues can stem from having a disorganized, dysfunctional space. And so maybe you recognize that that is at the root of some of your challenges in your family. And so you're wanting to solve for that so that you can have a more seamless relationship within your home. Maybe it's simply that you feel anxiety in your space and you just don't want to feel that anymore. Setting those different goals really can help drive you throughout the process, because unfortunately sometimes the organizing process gets hard at step number 2, which is decluttering. Decluttering is hard for a lot of people because we don't want to let go of items that maybe have some sort of sentimental value to us. We feel attached to a lot of our items. We have been conditioned and trained to keep everything. And so decluttering is where it really gets real about how serious you are about having an organized space, because I can organize things into nice, pretty bins and boxes all day. I say it all the time, but it is not going to create the result that you probably want in your space. What really creates the peaceful, serene feeling in your space is having less stuff. So if you didn't listen to the last episode of Buy Less Stuff, you should listen to it, because that can actually make the decluttering process much easier. If we have less stuff to get rid of, the decluttering process goes by quickly, and it's easier to let go of things when we have gotten ourselves in the mindset of not buying and consuming as much. So decluttering, like I said, is usually the harder part of the organization process. There are 2 questions that I usually push my clients to ask themselves as we are working together on decluttering. The first is, do I love this item? There are items that we can and maybe even should love. Something that maybe your grandmother got for you that is super sentimental, or maybe it's your favorite shirt and you wear it all the time and you think it just goes with everything. Everyone has different items that they truly do love. It brings them joy to have it, to put it on, to wear it, to take it outside. And so those items that we really do love, we should keep because they bring us joy. And just think, if you had a home or a closet or a bedroom or a bathroom that was comprised of only items that you loved, that'd be a pretty fun closet or bathroom or bedroom to walk into, because it's just all of your favorite things. Now, there are items in our homes that we don't necessarily love or need to love, but we do need them, right? We need something to cook our food in. We need something to brush our teeth with. We need something to hang our clothing on. So there are items that we may not love, but we do need them and we want to keep those. And we have to be honest with ourselves about what those needs are. We all did those worksheets in elementary school where we had to identify what is a want versus what is a need. And we're going to tap back into that for the purposes of decluttering our spaces for success. Where it starts to get a little fuzzy is when items don't fall into either of those 2 categories. And so when I'm working with clients on their spaces, I'll usually create piles for them. We'll do an absolutely must keep pile. We'll do a pile of items we are perfectly fine with getting rid of. And then in the middle, we'll have a maybe pile, and most of my clients have a really big maybe pile. And so when it gets time to go through that maybe pile, the best thing you can do is really work within the confines of the space that you have for those items. So let's say in your kitchen, you have space for 3 pots to sit easily, nicely, in an uncluttered way in your designated pot cabinet. We're going to keep the 3 pots that we love the most of the maybe 10, 15 pots that we have. In your closet, let's say you have space for 15 pairs of shoes to sit on the designated shoe counter. We're going to confine ourselves to 15 pairs of shoes. So let's say our must keep pile had 8 pairs of shoes that we love, we must keep. In that maybe pile, we're keeping 7 so that we do not go over that limit of what our space can contain, which is 15. That is what I found to be the cleanest way, but also a way that pushes us to really only keep what we have the space for. And it creates boundaries in our space that maybe we didn't have before, of only keeping what we need and love, and then having some room for the things that we simply want, but not letting that room for the wants be infinite. So that's decluttering at a high level. And that's how I like to work with clients through the decluttering process. Now, it's also usually the place where people can get really stuck. So that's where hiring a home organizer can be helpful and beneficial, because we can come in and really push you to get rid of stuff. I also sometimes with clients, because they can't really be part of the process, it overwhelms them or they just don't like it. I get guidance from them on what's important to them on a more general level, and then I actually go through and do the decluttering for them. And nothing gets thrown away or disposed of without their approval and sign off. But sometimes just having someone come in and do that for you can really put things into perspective, and you take yourself out of the equation and you come back and you can see like, okay, actually everything in this closet I actually really love. And although I am getting rid of a lot of items, everything that I need is probably here. Now, a quick trick that I've seen work really well with some clients is when you're really having a hard time getting rid of stuff, take everything in that maybe pile and put it in boxes. And then take those boxes and put them in a place that's out of sight, out of mind. If you go back to those boxes for a shirt or a pants or whatever it is, keep it. But if after a month goes by, you don't go back to any of those boxes, just get rid of everything in them. And what I usually find is people forget about the boxes and they forget about what's even in them because they already have enough. A lot of the time, mental block of getting rid of stuff is the hardest part. Living without the stuff is quite easy because we didn't actually need it, but there's this mental block of I need everything, and so it makes it hard to get rid of it to begin with. And so sometimes just getting rid of it is the hardest part. And once we get rid of it, it opens up our spaces and our minds to do many other more productive things. So that's the decluttering process that I usually like to go through with clients. So if you try all that, or you've heard me say all that and you're like, I can't do it, that's when hiring a home organizer can be really helpful. Usually 90% of my clients have tried to declutter and they just can't do it. They can't get over the mental block. They can't take the time to actually go through their items for whatever reason. Some of us really just have a challenge letting go of items, and it's completely normal, completely okay. That's when having a home organizer come in can actually be very helpful, because we don't have the attachment to the stuff, and we can help you really see where maybe you are keeping things for reasons that may be hidden to you. I have that a lot with clients. I'll be working with them on their items, and I spend hours with my clients. And so as we're talking through items and talking through what to keep, I can usually pretty quickly pick up on different patterns that are not necessarily necessarily at the forefront of their minds as to why they're keeping stuff. And sometimes you just need someone to help you see something that may be a blind spot for you to then say, okay, actually that isn't super logical. Usually the decluttering process will tell you if you need to hire someone. The third step that I go through with clients, and probably what you think about when you hear organizing, is the reorganization process. Now that we have identified all the items that we are going to keep, we are now going to organize the space accordingly. Now, the success of your reorganization effort is only going to be as good as your decluttering. And so if you are keeping too many items when you go to reorganize, your space is probably going to still feel overwhelming. And so that's why I really do push clients during that decluttering process to get rid of as much as we can, so that when we reorganize everything back into the space feels really, really different. Now, this is also where I will bring in different products to help people stay organized, and it really is going to depend on the type of person you are. Some people really need bins and different organization tools to help them stay organized, especially when you have a bunch of family members or other people living in your home that may not be part of the home organizing process. Having items labeled really clearly can help make sure that they keep up with the organization just as much as you are. But I want to emphasize that this is not necessary. What I will always advocate for in my work with clients and on this podcast is it is best to buy less stuff. The less we can buy, the better. And so that is applied also to home organizing products. If you need a bin to make sure that this area stays organized, go for it. Let's try to make it a bin that's made from sustainable materials so that we can minimize that impact on the planet. However, if you're able to keep your space organized without a bunch of home organizing products, that is a-okay. It's actually great. In my own home, I actually don't have a ton of organizing products. And I love how home organizing products look, but in the effort of trying to live more with less stuff, home organizing products are part of that mission as well. And so I have home organizing products in areas where I know I need them, like below the bathroom sink. But in areas where I don't have a ton of stuff and it's easy for me to remember where things go and keep things organized without a home organizing product, I opt not to have one. And so that's really going to depend on the household and the person and how you operate. There's nothing wrong with buying home organizing products and using them. There's also nothing wrong with not having home organizing products and really just going off of memory or repurposing home organizing products you already have. There are plenty of different commonly used items in our homes that we may not see are storage tools that actually can be. And that's again where having a home organizer can be helpful. I know that's something I like to do with my clients, depending on what their budget is for purchasing home organizing products. I will always try to repurpose items they already have rather than buying new home organizing products. So reorganizing really is going to look different depending on the person and the household, but it is the third step to the process nonetheless. Now, the fourth step is to repeat. You probably know we accumulate things, and so maybe if we're superstars, we never have to organize again. But I have not seen that happen with anyone, including myself. And so as life changes, as things and situations shift in our lives, we should also shift and rearrange our homes as needed. You have to determine what cadence makes sense for you to repeat the process. Sometimes that means just a quick freshen up of the organization and decluttering we already put in place. Sometimes that means we need to do a complete overhaul. It really just depends, but we should have a regular time which we go through our home and make sure that it is still working for us and that we haven't accumulated too much stuff. So maybe that's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's annually. It's really going to depend on you and your household, but I would encourage you to set a time, spring cleaning, or at the end of each quarter, or at the top of each year. You are going to completely assess and reorganize your space as needed. Now, if you are earlier in your organization journey, I would encourage you to set that cadence to be more frequent, simply so you can build the muscle of organizing and decluttering often. If you have multiple people in your home, I also think it's probably better to do a more frequent cadence, again, just because a lot of things can change more quickly, maybe than if there's just a few people in the home. So those are the 4 steps of getting organized that I take clients through. If you are thinking about hiring a home organizer, the number one thing I would say to do is really do your research to make sure that you get the space that you want in your home. I highly encourage it. There are a lot of home organizers out there. Have a conversation with the person before you hire them to make sure that it's someone that you feel like you can trust for a number of reasons. But the number one reason is this person is going to be in your home for likely quite a bit of time. And so you want to make sure you have someone in your home that you feel that you can trust. But secondly, I alluded to this during the decluttering part of the process. This person that you're going to have in your home is going to be going through your items. You may not realize this, but especially during the decluttering process, sometimes you've got to get a little bit vulnerable to really understand why you're keeping items and get rid of items in the way that you need to create the space that you want. And you're just going to be less likely to do that if you don't feel like you can trust the person that is there trying to help you move through your space. So really try to find someone that you feel like you click with and that you want to have in your home, because without that, it can be less of an effective process if you don't feel that you have that with that person. And so those are my tips. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and let me know what you thought. Let me know what questions you have. And as always, I will see you next week on the Sustainably Tidy podcast.